Hello everybody! A new hotfix just went live with several balance changes. Some of them are quite good, but there are definitely some things I still want to see changed. The most relevant changes happen to Chaos Volley, Arctic Leap, Axis, Horse Combat, Scholar Blood, and the Spear Q burst combo. I'll go over these changes and share my thoughts on how they will affect the meta and the viable builds. First, the Vermin Self change. It does not get interrupted anymore by damage during the cast time, and that is a nice change because Chaos Volley has been so popular. It wasn't uncommon to have a Chaos Burn dot on you and you could not heal yourself until that dot went away. Now you can start healing yourself earlier, right before the dot disappears, and get the healing off a little bit faster. Scholar Blood got nerfed by getting its spell power reduced, and the free chance cast has been reduced as well. It's a good change. The blood was definitely overpowered, but I think it's very situational. You don't see it too often, and I hope that we still see more adjustments to this in the future. Honestly, I do think we need to rework on the free cast chance. Mounted combat. The melee damage on mounts has been reduced by 30%. I'm a bit torn on this one. I really like that horse combat was actually useful in this game, and I haven't been able to properly test it yet, but I really hope that it can still be used. Veil of Blood. The healing has been increased by 1%, which does not really make a big difference. The stash can only really be used in PvE, and honestly, I don't think it's a very good dash, but if they want to make it viable for PvP, it definitely needs something on top of what it does right now. But I think it's also okay if an ability is only really usable in PvE, and as long as every spell can find some kind of use somewhere, like actual good use, I'm fine with it. Corpse Explosion has had its damage increased, the snare got increased, and the cooldown has been reduced. And those are some pretty big buffs, but the ability is still as useless as ever. There's no reason to ever really run this, because Void has 2 stacks, 1 second shorter cooldown, and actually, with the Chaos Burn dot together, deals more damage than 1 hit of Corpse Explosion. So I don't really see why you would run that. The Fading Stare is also not as good as the knockback on Void, because it also interrupts. This needs some bigger changes, and also I think it needs something besides the snare. Unstable Mosquito. This was already a really good spell for PvP, as I explained in my top 5 build video, and I think the extra damage is justified, and I like it. It's gonna be good. A little bit more viable. Veil of Bones got a big buff on the damage of the projectile. This is a peculiar one. I think having double dash on Veil of Chaos is too good to pass up on, but Veil of Chaos has 1 longer second cooldown now too after the patch, so I'll experiment with this a little because the damage is pretty decent now, and you can throw a quick extra projectile at enemies dealing about 28 damage on max level. And it also increases the damage that they take by 25%. It's a little bit of extra poke and an extra projectile that enemies have to dodge, so yeah, I will try this. The Spectral Wolf damage has been increased, but also the cooldown has been increased a little bit. I still think this is not really worth running, primarily because the bounce on the wolf does not really work very well. People can just sidestep it, it just oftentimes does not hit. It can hit trees in between, there's just so many weird things, it's not really reliable, and honestly, for a 8-second cooldown, 125% damage is just not enough. It has a weaken effect, which can be good, but I think overall, Spectral Wolf needs some more love. Mirror Strike has had its cast time reduced to 0.7 seconds, which brings it in line with Heart Strike, but I probably still prefer Heart Strike overall, but I can see Mirror Strike being useful because you can aim it at environmental targets like rocks and trees and get AoE damage out of it. Chaos Barrier has had its damage reduced. The damage nerf is nice, I guess, but I already thought the ability was pretty much in line with the Frost Barrier, so I don't think this nerf was necessary. I think it should be punishing to hit barriers and counters, and this ability has also helped a lot in 1vx situations in the open world, so I'm not super happy with it, but overall I think it's a fine change. Eos Volley has had its cooldown reduced by 1 second, and the damage has been reduced to 110% instead of 125%. And I'm really glad that they did not go overboard with this nerf, because I think the game would be left in a bad place if Chaos Volley wasn't useful anymore. I believe other offensive abilities need to be buffed first, otherwise defensive abilities like shields will take over the meta, and it already has done so in arena environments. Since Axe is so damn powerful, people just run support spells for that weapon. Power Surge has had its shield reduced from 150 to 120%, and that ability has been extremely powerful. I think the nerf is justified, but I think people will still continue using it. it, and honestly, I don't even know if Power Surge itself has been too strong. I think the problem rather lies with Axis being too strong. Veil of Chaos has had its cooldown increased by 1 second, and the illusion damage has been reduced a little bit too. This is still gonna be the best spacebar ability in most situations. The Frost Dash has been extremely powerful in arena fights and 1v1s already, and I think it's good that they bring Veil of Chaos more in line with the other dashes, but I would prefer it if they would buff the other dashes instead of nerfing Veil of Chaos from here on out. Merciless Charge has had its cast time reduced and some bug fixed with it, and honestly I'm not really sure what this bug fix means exactly. A shorter cast time will definitely help, but I think it's too risky to use this ultimate if you have other choices, because you get no iframes and you lock yourself in place for a short time, often resulting in you taking more damage than the enemy. Also, you can dash out of this ultimate after being hit quite often, which definitely is not how it's supposed to work, and it still works after this patch. So they gotta fix that to make this ability actually worth running. Crystalline has had its damage increase significantly, it has a faster cast time, shorter cooldown, and the splitter damage has been nerfed a little bit, but overall this is a nice buff. I'm gonna try it out a little bit. I still don't think you should run this over frostbats, but sometimes you can use the environment to get the splinters triggered, and maybe it could work in team fights? I'm not sure, I gotta experiment a little bit with this one. Ice Nova has had its cooldown decreased by 2 seconds, which is a big buff, and I did mention an artillery build with frost abilities in my top 5 builds video, and the shorter cooldown could definitely help a lot. I'll experiment with this one a little bit more. Veil of Frost has been nerfed a little bit, but I'm not really sure if it actually worked properly. Either way, it deals a lot of damage. If you hit someone with slashers, it deals around 10 damage on max level, and if you hit them with the empowered attack, it deals 30 damage and slows them as well. So it's a really strong ability in duels, especially because you get the shield and everything. People love using that, and I think it's a way to go if you want to be strong in 1v1 duels. Arctic Leap has gotten some changes. It cannot hit the same target multiple times anymore, which is really important because there were some one-shot combos with this, and also the damage has been reduced a little bit further besides that. So there won't be quite as many one-shot combos with this, but it's still going to be extremely powerful, and a lot of people will just keep running this ultimate. Crossbow no longer deals less damage with empowered attacks. This was a weird bug. An empowered attack now deals exactly the same amount of damage as a regular attack. Not sure if that's entirely intended. I think it should honestly get the bonus damage as well, but right now it doesn't. Your Q has had its damage reduced. It's the most important combo piece, and it will still be the bread and butter of any combo, so it doesn't really change much, but combos will deal a little bit less damage overall now. And also the harpoon pull on the spear has been buffed. It deals a little bit more damage, but it's completely negligible, honestly. It's very situational, and you won't use this more than you were using it before. And if you do get a hit, now it deals just a little bit more damage, which is fine, I guess. And then let's get to the Axis. The Axis has had its incapacitation reduced to 1 second from 2 seconds, and the damage has been reduced to 80% from 85%. The incap nerf was absolutely necessary. It's not an easy combo opener anymore, and you cannot follow up with Arctic Leap after hitting it like you used to. The damage, though, is still way too high, and the snare it applies when you don't hit the incap is still too powerful. You can follow up with too many abilities afterwards. Axes are just way too strong and are really easy to play, and many builds revolve around just supporting the Axis with a bunch of shields. There is little to no counterplay to how Axes work. Axe E is inconsistent, and it hits you or incapacitates you sometimes when it shouldn't. It goes through barrier sometimes when it shouldn't, and the Axe Q dash attack is instant and you cannot react to it, so many players just use a bunch of shields, try to get in for a quick Axe Q, maybe throw an Axe E in as well, and then immediately disengage and just use the protection of the shields to win those trades, and it's just really lame to play against. I think it's kinda uninteractive, it's way too strong, and just promotes this weird kind of playstyle with little counterplay. I hope they rework the Axis altogether, as I strongly believe this weapon is the one critical issue in PvP balance right now. There's a reason why everybody is running Axis on full loot PvP servers. Mace has had its damage increase significantly to 150% from 110%, which is a really nice buff, but Mace will still not really be used because Axis exist and they just do what Mace does, but better. So if Axis gets reworked or brought more in line, maybe Mace will be used. But honestly, this is another reason why I think either Mace or Axis should be reworked, and honestly I think it should be Axis, because Mace and Axis just do the same stuff, and there will always be one that's better than than the other, and I think that's not great design. Then they also nerfed the Whirlwind ability on Sword and the Shockwave E ability on the Sword as well. I'm a little confused by this one. I think Sword has been pretty much the least used weapon in most situations, and I think it was always very situational to use the Sword, and I don't think it has ever really been too strong. So I don't really understand why they nerfed the E ability on it especially. I think if anything it would need some buffs, it should deal more damage, should be more rewarding when you hit the Sword E, because right now it does not even compare to the Axe E, even after the nerf. Yes, it has a longer range and everything, so situationally you can use it, but it just needs some buffs. Then the Slasher Q got a little damage buff, and the incapacitate duration has been reduced to 2.5 seconds from 3 seconds. And this weapon is amazing in world PvP, and it really shines when you're outnumbered. Buffing Slasher's Q was not really necessary, and nerfing the incap makes sense, but I'm not a huge fan of it. It's probably fine because it still allows you to do the same things you want to do in open world PvP, and if anything, it actually maybe helps people who are outnumbered, because longer duration oftentimes just sets enemies up to wait for their allies to arrive and combo you together. Let me know in the comments what you think of the balance changes, which balance change you are missing in these patch notes. I did write a document with my own suggested balance changes, which I could share in the future. I don't know if you're interested in that. And thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, I would really appreciate a subscription or a like or both, and hit that bell button. And yeah, anyway, I will see you guys soon. Much love.